and welcome back to the channel. My name is Joy. Guys, I am just crawling out of my skin. So excited about today's video. So this is going to be, and I'm just gonna laugh through it because at this point, guys, what else are we gonna do but laugh? We're just gonna laugh at all of this and how silly this whole thing is because today is the day that Biden does a press conference and apparently he's off prompter, off script, and is taking questions and allegedly none of it's scripted. I don't know how much I believe any of this, but this is what's supposed to happen. And can you imagine the gold we're about to get from this? Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Every day is like my birthday, especially when I wake up and it's a big Biden day of him doing something ridiculous, and every day just gets crazier and crazier. So we're gonna go ahead and dive into this. And guys, if you like content like this, make sure and subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Like the video and do this with me, watch with me and comment. Do you pick up on stuff I don't? Let's watch this crap show and have a good time. Here we go. All right, here we go. We're finally starting. It's now been an hour, guys. They're like an hour late. This better be good. He better make a ton of gams. Better be worth our time. He better come out there and entertain us.
Distinguished guests,
Here we go.
President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Let's go, Brandon.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy? Did he just say, hey, buddy?
Thank you. Please be seated.
Who was he talking to?
Well, good evening. We just concluded this year's NATO summit, and the consensus among the members was it was a great success.
It's really slurry.
It's especially momentous because it represented the 75th year, the most important military defense alliance in the world's history of the world.
Oh, man.
We should never forget that NATO grew out of the wreckage of
He can barely get through this. It's so, you guys hear this, it's so slurry.
World War II, the most destructive war in history. The idea was to create an alliance of free and democratic nations that would commit themselves to a compact of collective defense. Standing together, they knew we'd all be safer. An attack on one would be treated as an attack on all. And it's worked because a would-be aggressor knows if they attack one of us, they'll be attacked by all of us.
They get a little better.
Sending that message is the best way to deter aggression
Nope, slurs.
and prevent wars in the first place.
Anytime there's an S.
For those who thought NATO's time had passed, they got a rude awakening when Putin invaded Ukraine.
Putin.
Some of the oldest and deepest fears in Europe roared back to life because once again, a murderous madman was on the march. But this time, no one cowered in appeasement, especially the United States. We collected intelligence that Russia was planning to invade Ukraine months before the invasion. I directed the intelligence community to be a significant amount of intelligence be declassified.
Here we go.
So I could start building an international coalition to oppose the invasion.
What did he say? And you can tell, typically if there's one gap, it's like a whole slew of them start to follow. You can start to see the patterns with them. Sound off in the comments. Did you hear what he said? I don't know what he said. What did he say?
Then in February, some of you remember, I warned the world that the invasion was imminent. I rallied a coalition of 50 nations from Europe to Asia to help Ukraine defend itself. Many foreign policy experts thought, as Putin amassed Russian forces just 100 miles north of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, but Putin thought it was the mother home of Russia. The capital would fall in less than a week. But the Ukrainian people...
The mother home of Russia. There were so many little gaps in there, I didn't even catch them all. I didn't even catch them all. My brain's trying to catch up and go, wait, what was that one? And then like 5 more happen. Again, sound off in the comments. What did you hear?
Backed by a coalition to help stop them. Today, Kyiv still stands. And NATO stands stronger than it has ever been. During the week of this summit,
second cough.
Several heads of states made it a point
Heads of states.
in their statements to thank the United States and to thank me personally.
That's the third cough. Is he okay? Is coughing part of the Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's family? Is that, I feel like I've heard that in the raspy voice, even though he said he just had a cold. And look, I was a professionally trained voice teacher and a singer. Like, I understand the voice is the first thing to go and the last thing to get back, but it's been a while to where I'm like, it would have had to have been something real bad for you to still be coughing. And what about the S's? Now, is this just part of the what we think is Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's family thing? Or is this a dentures thing? Some people are saying it's denture related because apparently if your dentures don't fit, your S's are weird and you pronounce things weird. What are you guys hearing?
All that NATO has achieved. NATO's not only stronger, NATO is bigger because we led the charge to bring in Finland and Sweden into the alliance.
It's so slurry.
It makes a gigantic difference. Excuse me.
Number 4.
Meanwhile, my predecessor has made it clear he has no commitment to NATO. He's made it clear that he would feel no obligation to honor Article 5.
No, we don't like NATO.
He's already told Putin, and I quote, do whatever the hell you want.
Did he say that?
In fact, the day after Putin invaded Ukraine, here's what he said. It was genius. It was wonderful. Some of you forgot that, but that's exactly what he said.
That was exactly what he said, guys. I could see him saying certain things about it and saying it was a genius tactical move in terms of war-type situation. What they did was a brilliant move. And here's the thing. This is what people seem to lack understanding of context. I have said before that many times evil, certain types of evil, are extremely intelligent to where it's impressive. Does that mean that I think evil is good and that what they're doing are good and I support it? No. But you can respect the talent of something, even if it's not in the direction of where you want it to go. The fact that people seem to not be able to have that context, and I think people really do have that context, it's just take anything out of context to get the attention that you want. But is that what Trump really said? Because at this point, when I hear stuff like that, I don't believe it. But now when I hear something, Biden said something crazy, I do believe it because they lied for so long about what's wrong with him. And now we realize there are things wrong. And the things that are coming out are so crazy. Now I'm like, yeah, I believe he coughed up an elephant and then rode it around in his underwear, pooped on it, and he and Whoopi Goldberg did a poop dance. I totally believe that happened.
But I made it clear. A strong NATO is essential to American security. And I believe the obligation of Article 5 is sacred. And I would remind all Americans.
We'll remind.
Article 5 is invoked only once in NATO's long history.
Number 5, cough.
And that was to defend America after 9/11. I made it clear that I will not bow down to Putin. I will not walk away from Ukraine. I will keep NATO strong. That's exactly what we did, and exactly what we'll continue to do.
And Russia's still winning.
Now, the future of American policy is up to the American people. This is much more than the political question. It's more than that. It's a national security issue.
National security.
Don't reduce this to the usual testament.
Don't reduce this?
That people talk about issues of being a political campaign. It's far too important. It's about the world we live in for decades to come. Every American must ask herself or himself, is the world safer with NATO?
Slurring.
Are you safer?
So slurring.
Is your family safer?
No, we're not. No, we're not, because you let in so many illegal immigrants and didn't vet anybody that we're going to have some type of terrorist situation. It's coming. The fact that China wants to take over and a lot of these immigrants are Chinese, and it's not that I have anything against anybody. I'm just saying, it's like saying you should never have locks on your doors or that makes you somebody prejudiced. No, you have to protect yourself. No, we're not safer. Also, we're more in debt and in poverty, and you're saying you're just going to continue to put money into a losing war while we're all in poverty, and you have no way to get us out. You just keep saying, oh, well, my plan's better than Trump's. 16 laureates, 16 Nobel laureates. Nobody cares, and we don't believe you.
The American people know the answer to all those questions is yes.
No, it's not.
And I believe the American people understand that America is stronger because of our alliances.
No, you're not functional.
I believe the American consensus from Truman to Reagan to me still holds today. America cannot retreat from the world. We must lead the world. We're an indispensable nation, as Madeleine Albright wrote.
We have no nation now.
Now let me turn to 3 other key issues.
You made that happen.
Just this morning, we had a great economic report showing inflation is down. Overall prices fell last month. Core inflation is the lowest it's been in 3 years. Prices are falling for cars, appliances, and airfares. Grocery prices have fallen since the start of the year. We're going to keep working to take down corporate greed to bring those prices down further.
Yeah, they're not going down.
Meanwhile,
We are having record numbers where we can't pay our bills. We're seeing it every day. People are talking about it every day. You can't gaslight us anymore. It's not better.
Trump's calling for a 10% tariff on everything Americans buy, including food from overseas.
I literally don't
vegetables,
believe it.
And other necessities. And economists tell us that would cost the average American working family another $2,500 a year. It's a tax of $2,500 a year.
Prove it.
Second, our efforts to secure the border, southern border, is working.
He just said our efforts to secure the southern border are working. He said they're working. That's what he said.
Trump killed the bipartisan effort to secure the border Republicans and Democrats had worked on.
Trump ended
because he thought it would benefit me and make him a loser. Republicans walked away. So I took executive action last month. As a consequence, working with Mexico, border encounters have gone down over 50%.
I don't believe it.
The current
Prove it.
level is lower today than when Trump left office.
Prove it.
Third, for months, the United States has been working to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, to bring the hostages home, to create a path for peace and stability in the Middle East. 6 weeks ago, I laid out a detailed plan in writing. It was endorsed by the UN Security Council, the G7. That framework is now agreed on by both Israel and Hamas. So I sent my team to the region to hammer out the details. These are difficult, complex issues. There's still gaps to close, but we're making progress. The trend is positive, and I'm determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war, which should end now.
No, you're just going to give him more money.
Let me conclude where I began. We're the United States of America. We are the indispensable nation. Our leadership matters. Our partnerships matter. This moment matters. We must rise to meet it. With that, I'll take your questions. I've been given a list of people to call on here.
Here we go.
Reuters, Jeff Mason.
Mr. President, your political future has hung over the NATO summit a little bit this week. Speaker Pelosi made a point of suggesting that your decision on whether to stay in the race was still open. George Clooney and a handful of lawmakers have called on you to step aside. Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership is concerned about your ability to win.
UAW just endorsed me, but go ahead.
Thank you. My question for you is, how are you incorporating these developments into your decision to stay? And separately, what concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
I wouldn't pick Trump.
Number one. The fact is that the consideration
Number 6
is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again.
I thought Trump was your vice president.
Secondly, the idea, I served in the Senate a long time.
You what?
The idea that senators and congressmen running
7
for office worry about the ticket is not unusual. And I might add, there are at least 5 presidents running or incumbent presidents who had lower numbers than I have now.
We're going to do the creepy thing now.
Later in the campaign.
Creepy lower
So there's
voice.
a long way to go
Lower.
in this campaign.
Really
And so I'm just going to keep moving. Keep moving. And because, look, I got more work to do. We've got more work to finish. There's so much, we made so much progress. Think about it. Think about where we are economically relative to the rest of the world. Name me a world leader who wouldn't want to trade places with our economy. We've
there's a
created
few of them.
over 800,000 manufacturing jobs, 1.5 million. I mean, so things are moving.
Wait, what?
We got more to go.
What numbers?
Working class people still need help. Corporate
Working
greed
class
is
still have need
large.
help?
Their prices, the corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. They're coming down, and so I'm optimistic about where things are going.
Okay, he did actually say, I'm going to give some credit. The start of the question, right? When he was calling him out saying all these people are saying in this organization, and he stood up, was it UAW or something? UAE something. He said, they actually just endorsed me. And at first I was like, all right. And then it started off okay. And then, he wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be his president if he thought that he could be the president. Trump's a good vice president, but not a president. This is going to be good, guys.
Danny Kemp, AFP.
It's number 8.
Thanks.
Cough.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you about you mixed up Presidents Zelensky and Putin earlier today. And you now have sort of your key allies, including the British Prime Minister, the President of France, the German Chancellor having to step in and make excuses for you on that. And officials here are saying off the record that your decline has become noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Thank you.
That's
Did you
right.
see any damage to our standing in my leading this conference? Have you seen a more successful conference? What do you think? And the Putin piece, I was talking about Putin, and I said, and now, at the very end, I said, Putin. I said, no, I'm sorry, Zelensky.
Yeah.
And then I added 5 other names. Look, guys.
5 other names.
The idea anybody suggests that we haven't had an incredibly successful conference.
They're not talking about the conference. They're talking about the fact that you are terrifying as a leader because you shouldn't lead. But he wants to focus on, I was like, have you? Because you've done a ton of stupid things during this conference.
How many times did you hear in that conference, I know it sounds too self-serving, but other leaders, heads of state, in thanking me, saying the reason we're together is because of Biden, because Biden did the following.
They're being polite.
Look, folks.
You said you
this
banged
is,
the guy's wife. He's
well,
getting upset.
Anyway.
Anyway.
I thought it was the most successful conference I've attended in a long time.
He's getting upset.
And find me a world leader who didn't think it was.
Well,
Next
apparently we
one.
have. They're
Sorry,
speaking
Nancy
out.
Cordes, CBS.
Number 10.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned other instances in history where presidents have faced a challenge, but what makes this moment in history so unique is that it is not your enemies who are calling on you to reconsider your decision to stay in the race. It's your friends, supporters, people who
right.
think you've done a great job over the past 4 years.
That's right.
Have you spent time thinking about what it would mean for your legacy, which you've worked decades to build, if you stay in the race, despite the concerns that voters say they have, and you lose to someone who you yourself have argued is unfit to return to the Oval Office?
Well, look, I'm not in this for my legacy.
He's so slurry.
I'm in this to complete the job I started. As you recall, understandably, many of you and many economists thought my initial initiatives that I put forward, can't do that, it's going to cause inflation, things are going to skyrocket, the debt's going to go up. What are you hearing now?
We can't
from
pay our bills.
mainstream economists?
Ooh, low. Let's
16 economic Nobel laureates
16 again.
said I've done a hell of a job.
16.
And under my plan so far and what's going to happen in the future if I'm reelected, things are going to get much better.
Gonna get
Our
better.
economy is growing. I was determined when I got elected to stop the trickle-down economic theory. That if the wealthy did very well, everybody else would do well.
It's the same talking points over
My
and
dad
over.
was a well-read, decent guy. I don't remember much trickling down on his kitchen table. Middle-class people and working-class people need help. And so what happened is I decided to was able to implement as president what I believed when I was a senator.
Stutter.
And that is that the way to build this economy is from the middle out and the bottom up. That way we grow the economy. And the wealthy still do very well. They do fine. And guess what?
Number 11.
Find me an economist, a mainstream economist who said we haven't done well. What have we not done that isn't working right
We
now?
can't pay our bills.
And so we got more to do, though. We got to finish the job.
Inflation is crazy.
And by the way, I come from the corporate state of the world.
by the way.
Delaware has more corporations registered in Delaware than every other state in the nation combined.
Get it out. Get it out.
I'm not anti-corporate, but corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. Doubled. It's time things get back in order a little bit.
Well, you've
It's
been here
time,
since 2020.
For example,
This is your
if I'm
fault.
reelected, we're going to make sure that rents are kept at 5% increase in corporate rents for apartments and the like and homes.
When he got into office, my rent doubled. When he got into office, my rent doubled and I lost my home. Remember, guys? I lost my home because my rent doubled under him. Under him. So if you didn't do anything about it then and it's gotten even worse now, why would you do anything now? Don't act like that you aren't the one that caused this.
Are limited to 5%. We're going to make a lot of changes that I've been talking about because we're going to continue to grow this economy. And by the way, remember how I got so roundly criticized for being so pro-union? Not labor, union. Well, guess what?
Guess what?
I've been the most pro-union labor president in history.
Guess what?
Not a joke. And guess what?
Joe, guess what?
We had the Treasury Department do a study. When unions do better, everybody does better.
Everybody does better.
Everybody does better. And we talk about how, for example, remember when we talked about bringing the computer chip industry back in the United States? Used to be 40% of the industry. We invented the chip.
Nobody cares.
40% of the industry
Nobody
in the United
cares.
States. And former presidents decided that the best way to do it is find the cheapest labor in the world, send the product over there and import what the product was. And so what did I do? I was told not to go over to to Asia, including Europe, but Asia.
Wait, where?
And I remember going to South Korea, convincing them to invest $20 billion in the United States.
Are you
to
sure it's
build
billion, million, or
computer chip
is it a
factories.
jillion?
And I asked why when they finally decided to do it. And the answer was because you have the safest economy in the world and you have the best workers in the world. So
Maybe
the
at one
whole
time.
idea here is we've invested, there's over $50 billion in investment in computer chip manufacturing just coming into being.
You sure that's the numbers?
None of you thought that would happen.
None of ya.
None of you thought that would happen.
None of ya. Suck
It's
it.
happening.
Suck it, losers.
It's happening. And it's going to grow economies.
Pick your nose.
All three. And by the way,
Pick it.
red states and blue states. Matter of fact, there's as much in red states as in blue states. I've made no distinction. So my generic point is that the idea that we can't continue to build and grow the economy,
You've made it worse.
make it fair.
You made it worse.
Like I said, from my standpoint, when the middle class does well, that's when the whole economy grows.
We're all suffering and
The
in
poor
poverty.
shot, the wealthy do well, but the wealthy got to start paying their taxes.
As a follow-up, sir, you mentioned that your Vice President Kamala Harris
Get it.
would be
Get that
ready
right.
to serve on day one. Can you elaborate on that? What is it about her attributes and her accomplishments over the last 4 years that make her ready to serve on day one if necessary?
First of all, the way she's handled the issue of freedom of women's bodies to have control over their bodies. Secondly, her ability to handle almost any issue on the board. This was a hell of a prosecutor. She was a first-rate person, and in the Senate, she was really good. I wouldn't have picked her unless I thought she was qualified to be president.
She laughed about putting minorities
From
in
the very
prison for
beginning.
minor things.
I made no bones about that. She is qualified to be president. That's why I picked her. Felicia Schwartz, Financial Times.
Thank you, Mr. President. Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
Good.
The limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true.
It's not. He said that on calls with his donors. He has said this on calls to Congress. So all of these people I don't believe all these people are lying when we've seen you lie. So, okay, let's see how he answers.
What I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting the fundraiser
8, 7,
at 9
6.
o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about. And if you looked at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the campaign in the debate.
You don't even. He doesn't even know what the mistake is and where it is. He can't even remember where it is. What one stupid mistake did you make during that whole debate? And furthermore, he's had a few days where he has nothing to do, and yet his wife is going to rallies and campaigning for him. What is he talking about?
My schedule has been full bore.
Full bore.
I've done, where's Trump been? Riding around on his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball?
Letting you self-destruct.
I mean, look, he's done virtually nothing.
He's letting you self-destruct. Smart.
And I have, I don't know how many, don't hold me to it, roughly 20 major events. Some of them with thousands of people showing up.
Thousands.
And so I just think it's better. I always have an inclination, whether I was playing sports or doing politics, just to keep going, not stop. I just got to just pace myself a little more. Pace myself.
I don't trust that that's what you said.
The next debate, I'm not going to be traveling into 15 time zones a week before. Anyway, that's what it was about. That's what it was about. And by the way, even with that,
By the way,
I love my staff, but they add things all the time.
he called his staff
Very,
liars.
I'm catching hell from my wife for that. Anyway.
So Jill's out in the audience going, cut it, stop. I'm catching HEL. He does not have the mental capacity to be able to know what information to disseminate and what not to disseminate. This is what I've been saying. Jill is out in the audience. Stop, talk. He just called his staff liars. I love my staff, but they're a bunch of liars. I'm in shock right now, guys. He's in trouble. Look, he knows he's in trouble.
I'm sorry.
He's upset.
Zeke Miller, Associated Press.
He's upset.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two questions for you. First, on the NATO summit, President Zelensky, in your meeting with him, he pressed you to lift your limitations on the Ukrainian use of American weapons, saying that, in his public remarks afterwards, saying that Ukraine cannot win the war unless those limitations are lifted. Are you reconsidering your position on that? And then secondly, following up on Felicia's question there, leaders of your own party have said that they're not worried about that debate. They're worried about the next bad night and the bad night after that. How can you reassure the American people that you are up to the task and that there won't be more bad nights at a debate stage or somewhere else?
First thing about Zelensky asking for the ability to strike deep into Russia. We've allowed Zelensky to use American weapons in the near term, in the near or abroad, into Russia. Whether or not he should be attacked. For example, should Zelensky, he's not.
We're going to be in World War III
capacity to strike
with him.
Moscow, strike the Kremlin. Would that make sense? It wouldn't. The question is, what's the best use of the weaponry he has and the weaponry we're getting to him? I've gotten a more long-range capacity as well as defensive capacity. And so our military is where I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the military.
You are the commander-in-chief.
As well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people. And we're making a day-to-day basis on what they should and shouldn't go, how far they should go in. That's
how far they should
thing
win?
to do. Second question related to
Bad nights, sir. How can you reassure the American people that you won't have more bad nights, whether they be on a debate stage or it's a matter of foreign policy?
That's right.
Well, I tell you what, the best way to assure them is the way I assure myself. And that is, am I getting the job done?
Delusional. And no, you're not.
Am I getting the job done?
So you're doing poorly.
Can you name me somebody who's gotten more major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years?
We didn't have this inflation with Trump.
I created 2,000 jobs this last week. So if I slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it.
It's dramatic.
But there's no indication of that yet.
Is there?
None.
There's not.
What we got here?
He can't read.
Merrick, Pulaski Radio.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm well.
The elections in the US have consequences around the world. You have pretty high standing in Europe. I just asked President Macron about you, and he said we are happy to have him as the President of the United States. But there is a concern. Many people in Poland and across Europe are worried that the former president may win the election. And there's a lot of concern that Donald Trump may weaken NATO, stop supporting Ukraine, or push Ukraine to give up territories to Russia.
They're correct.
And yourself was warning just 2 minutes ago about it. So my question is, do you think that Europe will be left on its own if Donald Trump wins the election? And what's your advice to European leaders to prepare for possible US disengagement?
Well, look, I think, how can I say this without sounding too self-serving? I'm not having any of my
What?
European allies come up to me and say, Joe, don't run.
Don't do it.
What I hear them
What's
say
this
is,
creepy voice?
you've got to win.
Gotta win.
You can't let this guy come forward.
Don't do it.
It'd be a disaster.
Why is he getting more whispery?
It'd be a disaster.
Why is he doing this?
I mean,
It sounds weird.
I think he said in one of his rallies, don't hold me to this, recently, where NATO, I just learned about NATO or something to that effect. Foreign policy has never been his strong point. And he seems to have an affinity to people who are authoritarian. That worries, as I tell you from Poland, that worries Europe. That worries Poland. And nobody, including the people of Poland, think that if he wins in Ukraine, he's going to stop in Ukraine, that that's going to be the end of it. And so what I can say is, I think I'm the best qualified person to do the job, to make sure that Ukraine does not fall, that Ukraine succeeds, that the European alliance stays strong.
You're gonna put us in more poverty,
And you may
dude.
recall, no one was talking about Finland joining NATO. I remember talking to Putin right after we got elected in Geneva, and he was talking about what we should do. We couldn't be in Eastern Europe, et cetera.
What?
And I said, you're looking for the Finlandization of Ukraine.
Finlandization.
I said, you're going to get the NATOization of Finland. And about 4
Finlandization.
weeks later, I got a call. No, that's not true.
What?
Probably 5 months later, from the president of Finland, could he come and see me? Because in my office, I invited him to the Oval Office. We sat down and talked. He said he wanted to join NATO. Could I help? And I did. It wasn't automatic. And then I got a call from the Swedes. I beg your pardon?
What?
And so Finland joined NATO. 800-mile border is a significant, and they were already allies, but they weren't part of NATO. And you heard, I think you heard, maybe, I can't recall what he said publicly in our closed meeting, but he wouldn't mind being repeated. He said, we decided in Finland, the people of Finland decided they had to be part of NATO. It was in our interest because of the joint ability to be together.
That fist, how long are we
to
gonna hold it?
dissuade any attack on Finland. And the same thing with
He actually put it
Sweden.
down.
It took a lot of selling to some folks, particularly
That Parkinson's fist.
in Turkey and other places, to agree to the expansion. But it expanded, and we're a hell of a lot stronger because of it. We're more
Are we?
secure because of it.
Are we?
And by the way,
By the way.
I was able to get 50 other nations, 50, to support Ukraine.
50-5-0?
50. And we were able to bring about a coalition of Europe and Asia, Japan and South Korea. I just we talked about AUKUS, and we talked about the relationship between Australia, New Zealand,
How does any of this matter?
Japan, South Korea, the United States. We're making the world safer and stronger. because we have to deal with the new arrangement that exists in the world. The Cold War is over. The post-war era is over. What is going to replace it? And I respectfully suggest I have a pretty good idea what that should be. I've convinced a lot of people to follow it, and we're just going to get stronger. David Sanger.
None of this matters. None of what he said matters.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Be nice, David.
Mr. President, the NATO declaration that was issued yesterday was very notable because it described China as a decisive enabler of the war in Ukraine for its provision of critical goods to the Russians. That's part of a broader partnership that seems to have cemented in place in the past 2 or 3 years. I think one that you were a little bit doubtful of when we asked you about it some time ago. So I'd be interested to know whether you have a strategy now of trying to interrupt the partnership between China and Russia, and whether or not in a second term you would pursue that, if you could describe that strategy to us. And along the way, could you also tell us whether you think, just to follow up on Felicia's question, that if you were in a room with Vladimir Putin again, the way you were 3 years ago, or with President Xi, that a few years from now you will be able to go negotiate with them, handle them one-on-one?
Well, the first part of the question is, we discussed and I raised in the NATO summit, and others raised, the future of China's involvement, what they're going to do, what they're doing with Russia in terms of accommodating, facilitating them. They're getting access to additional, they're not supplying weapons themselves, they're supplying mechanisms for them to be able to get weapons. And China's position is basically, and I've spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader has, over 90 hours since being vice president all the way through, for real. And by the way, I handed all my notes.
By the way.
But my point is that Xi believes that China is a large enough market that they can entice any country, including European countries, to invest there in return for commitments from Europe to do A, B, C, or D, or not to do certain things. What's happened is we had a long discussion about what we cannot, we have to make clear China has to understand that if they are supplying Russia with information and capacity, along with working with North Korea and others to help Russia in armament, that they're not going to benefit economically as a consequence of that by getting the kind of investment they're looking for.
Okay.
And so, for example, we're in a situation where, and we've reestablished direct contact with China after that, remember the balloon, quote unquote, going down, and all of a sudden things came to an end?
For UFO?
Well, we set up a new mechanism. There's a direct line between Xi and me, and our military has direct access to one another, and they contact one another when we have problems. The issue is that we have to make sure that Xi understands there's a price to pay for undercutting both the Pacific Basin as well as Europe.
Now let Trump do the
as it
deals.
relates to
He was better at
Russia and dealing with Ukraine. And so we, for example, if you want to invest in China, as you know this area really well, if you want to invest in China, you have to have a 51% Chinese owner. You have to make sure that you do by their rules. And you don't have the authority, and you have to provide all access to all the data and information you have. There was a while there, as you recall, the last administration and other administrations, where the access to that market was enticing enough to get companies to come in because they had access to over 1 billion people in the market, not 1 billion, but a lot of people in the market. And so they were doing it. But that got curtailed when we started saying we're going to play by the same rules. For example, the idea they don't abide by the international rules related to subsidizing products by the government funding. So guess what? They're not going to be able to export their electric vehicles to the United States without a significant tariff. Others are doing the same thing around the world. But it is a concern. It is a concern that you have both China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, countries that are not necessarily coordinated in the past, looking to figure out how they can have impact.
Do you have a strategy to interrupt that impact?
Yes, I do, but I'm not prepared to talk about the detail of it in public. And I think you'll see that some of our European friends are going to be curtailing their investment in Russia. In China, as long as China continues to have this indirect help to Russia in terms of being
We're starting to
able
malfunction.
help their economy as well as
You did okay for a little bit.
as well as help them as a consequence of that their ability to fight in Ukraine. The other thing that we've talked a lot about is that, and I raised it, and I didn't hear any. I can't swear that everyone agreed because not everyone got to talk about it. But we need a new industrial policy in the West. For example, we talked about how both the EU as well as NATO has to be able to begin to build their own munition capacity, has to be able to generate their own capacity to provide for weapons and the ability to, it came as a surprise to some of us how we had fallen behind in the West in terms of the ability to construct new material, new weaponry, new everything from vehicles to weapon systems. And so one of the things that came out of this was we're going to be meeting again with a number of my colleagues, my European colleagues, is what do we do to increase the capacity of the West, particularly in Europe and Japan, to be able to generate the kind of ability to produce their own weapon systems. Not just for themselves, but to be able to generate that. It's the same, it's what Russia's trying to figure out. That they went to China and they didn't get the weapons, but then they went to North Korea. But we're going to be in a position where the West is going to become the industrial base for the ability to have all the defensive weapons that we need.
He's starting to malfunction.
That was a discussion as well.
You got to stop.
President, I'm not sure you answered on whether you would be ready to go deal with Putin and Xi 2 or 3 years from now.
I'm ready to deal with them now and 3 years from now. Look,
Stop while you're
like
ahead.
I said, I'm
He's getting lost.
dealing with Xi right now and direct contact with him. I have no good reason to talk to Putin right now. There's not much that he is prepared to do in terms of accommodating any change in his behavior. But there isn't any world leader I'm not prepared to deal with. But I understand the generic point is Putin ready to talk? I'm not ready to talk to Putin unless Putin's ready to change his behavior. And the idea, look, Putin's got a problem. First of all, in this war that he is supposedly have won, and by the way, I think, don't hold me to the exact number, but I think that Russia had 17.3%
What's going on with his hand?
of Ukraine that they've conquered. Now it's 17.4. I mean, in terms of percentage
You guys see it? It's
of
shaking.
territory. They've not been very successful. They've caused horrible damage and loss of life, but they've also lost over 350,000 troops, military, killed or wounded. They have over 1 million people, particularly young people with technical capability, leaving Russia because they see no future there. They've got a problem. But what they do have control of is they are very good at controlling and running the public outcry that relates to how they use mechanisms to communicate with people. They lie like hell to the constituencies. They lie like hell about what's going on. And,
Well, all leaders do.
And so the
Most.
idea that we're going to be able to fundamentally change Russia in the near term is not likely. But one thing for certain,
So we're going to
if
funnel money into
we
it.
allow Russia to succeed in Ukraine, they're not stopping in Ukraine. I recommend, I know you know this because you've written about it, read Putin's speech after they moved in, what it was all about in Kyiv. It wasn't about just, anyway, read what his objective is. And anyway, but so I think
He's starting
that,
to malfunction. You got to move
I'm
on.
prepared to talk to any leader who wants to talk, including if Putin called me and wanted to talk. Last time I talked to Putin was trying to get him to work on an arms control agreement related to nuclear weapons.
It's getting
in
really
space.
rambly, guys.
That didn't go very far. So my point is, I'm prepared to talk to anybody, but I don't see any inclination. There is an inclination on the part of the Chinese to keep in contact with me, because they're not sure where this all goes. And look what's happened in Asia. We have strengthened the Asian Pacific area more than anybody else has. We just put together with, today I brought on, I asked our NATO allies that we bring on the group from the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Australia.
You just said Australia.
I mentioned Australia.
Yep.
And I met
We're stuttering.
twice now, I think, with the 14 leaders of the Pacific Island nations. And we've
He's
slowed
just
down
rambling.
what's going on there. We've slowed down China's reach. But there's a lot of work to do. This is a moving target, and I don't take it lightly.
It's getting really rambly.
Assam from NPR.
I feel bad. He's just starting to go downhill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Asma Khalid with NPR. I have two questions. Earlier, you spoke about the ceasefire plan between Israel and Hamas. We're now looking at 10 months of war, and I'm curious if there's anything that you feel personally you wish you would have done differently over
Another
the course
war.
of the war. And then secondly, if I may, I wanted to ask you about your presidential campaign. I remember covering your campaign in 2020, and there was a moment where you referred to yourself as a, quote, bridge candidacy, a transition to a younger generation of leaders. I want to understand what changed.
Two things. Let's go back to
Why aren't you
when
stepping
talked
aside?
about would I have changed anything that's happening with Israel and the Palestinians and the Palestinian movement? The answer is, as you recall, from the very beginning, I went to Israel, but I also got immediate contact with al-Sisi in Egypt. I met with the King of Jordan. I met with most of the Arab leaders to try to get a consensus going as to what had to be done to deal with getting more aid and food and medicine into the Gaza Strip. And we pushed it really hard. And Israel occasionally was less than cooperative, number one. The Israeli War Cabinet, I've been dealing with Israel since Golda Meir. Some of the reporters around here come here all the time and heard me say this. The first time I met with Golda Meir, I sat across from her at her desk, and her assistant was Rabin sitting next to me. That's how far back I go. I know Israel well, and I support Israel. But this war cabinet is one of the most conservative war cabinets in the history of Israel. And there's no ultimate answer other than a two-state solution here. And so what was able to be done in terms of the plan I put together was it would be a process for a two-state solution. And we get the Arab nations to, particularly from Egypt all the way to Saudi Arabia, to be in a position where they would cooperate
Why is their
in the
hand still up?
transition so that they could keep the peace in Gaza without Israeli forces staying
The hands
in
are looking
Gaza.
awkward.
The question has been from the beginning.
It's like
what's the
Talladega
day
Nights.
after in
Don't do the
Gaza?
hands.
And the day after in Gaza has to be, the end of the day after has to be no occupation by Israel on the Gaza Strip, as well as the ability for us to access get in and out as rapidly as you can all that's needed there. I've been disappointed that some of the things that I've put forward have not succeeded as well, like the port we attached from Cyprus.
That was a
hopeful
disaster.
That would be more successful.
Wasted millions on that.
That's why when I went to Israel immediately after the massacres that occurred at the hands of Hamas, the one thing I said to the Israelis, and I met with the War Cabinet and with Bibi, don't make the same mistake America made after bin Laden. There's no need to occupy anywhere. Go after the people who did the job. You may recall, I still get criticized for it, but I was totally opposed to the occupation and trying to unite Afghanistan. Once we got bin Laden, we should have moved on, because it was not no one's ever going to unite that country. I've been over every inch of that, not every inch, the entirety from the poppy fields all the way to the north. I said, don't make the same mistake we made. Don't think that's what you should be doing, is doubling down. We'll help you find the bad guys, Sinwar and company. And all this criticism about I wouldn't provide when the weapons they needed. I'm not providing them 2,000-pound bombs. They cannot be used in Gaza or any populated area without causing great human tragedy and damage. But remember what happened when you had the attack on Israel with rockets and ballistic missiles.
What? When was
I
this?
was able to unite the Arab nations as well as Europe.
Remember when?
And nothing happened. Nothing got hurt. It sent an incredible lesson to what was going on from the Middle East. So there's a lot of things, in retrospect, I wish I had been able to convince the Israelis to do. But the bottom line is we have a chance now. It's time to end this war. Doesn't mean walk away from going after Sinwar and Hamas. And if you notice, you know better than most, there is a growing dissatisfaction on the West Bank from the Palestinians about Hamas. Hamas is not popular now. And so
Hamas is only popular amongst the young kids.
I just have to keep moving to make sure that we get as much done as we can.
That's not true.
A ceasefire, and get those.
The Young Democrats are super pro-Hamas.
Look at the numbers in Israel. I mean, my numbers are better in Israel than they are here. But then again, they're better than a lot of other people here too. But anyway.
Why are we in this war? Why are we there?
Bridge candidacy in 2020. You referred to yourself as being a bridge candidate for a younger, fresher generation of Democratic leaders, and I wanted to know what changed.
He's a boomer hanging on to power.
A
mean one, not like y'all.
Of the situation I inherited. In terms of the economy, our foreign policy.
You did the economy. You did that.
Division.
You did that.
And
you wanted to get us into wars.
I won't put words in anybody's mouth.
You and Hunter lined your pockets.
Most presidential historians give me credit for having accomplished more than most any president since Johnson and maybe before that.
Really?
A major piece of legislation passed.
But more peace with Trump.
What I realized was my long time in the Senate had equipped me to have the wisdom of how to deal with the Congress to get things done. We got more major legislation passed that no one thought would happen. And I want to finish it, to get that finished. If tomorrow, if we had a circumstance where there was a lineup and I hadn't inherited what I did and we just moved things along, anyway.
What?
It's going to change.
Anyway.
Last question.
It'll change.
Haley Bull, Scripps.
All right, we're almost done, guys.
Or no, Josh Weingrove. I'm sorry.
Can't read.
I'll do 2 more questions.
Okay, 2 more.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of your colleagues, Democrats on the Hill, are watching tonight as they assess what they want to say about your candidacy. I'm wondering how you're thinking of this right now. It seems like your answer is clear, but they're watching how things go tonight, tomorrow in Michigan, next week in Texas and Nevada. Are you thinking that way about how the next week or 2 goes would inform your...
Am I using that way, you said?
Are you thinking that way about how the next 2 weeks go? Will that affect your decision, or are you fully determined on running in November as the party's nominee?
I'm determined on running, but I think it's important that I allay fears by let them see me out there. Let me see them out, for the longest time it was, Biden's not prepared to sit with us unscripted. Biden's not prepared to.
You're not.
Anyway.
And anyway,
so
you just.
what I'm doing is, and I've been doing,
He can't finish
I think
the
we've
thought.
done over 20 major events, from Wisconsin to North Carolina to anyway.
Same questions. And
to
anyway,
demonstrate
he's going
that
downhill.
I'm going out in the areas where we think we can win, where we can persuade people to move our way, or people are already there. And here, look, the other thing is, we have the most extensive campaign organization of anybody's had in a long, long time.
No, you haven't.
We have well over 1,000 volunteers.
He needs to stop.
Knocking on doors, making phone calls.
He's not
making
doing
tens
well.
of thousands of phone calls.
Honey, you got to go to bed.
We have headquarters. I forget exactly how many. I want to cite a number and then find out I'm off. But we have
'Cause he's been reamed.
scores of headquarters.
For giving wrong
in
info.
all
Misinformation.
The toss-up states. We're organized. We're moving, and that's awful hard to replace in the near term. And so, and here's the other thing. I was in the Senate a long time.
Too long.
Very proud of what I've done in the Senate. I was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee for a long time, and I was chairman or ranking member and chairman of the Judiciary Committee.
Judiciary.
I'm going to be going down to the Johnson Library. Anyway, I'm going to be going around
We're not finishing thoughts.
making the case of the things that I think we have to finish and how we can't afford to lose what we've done or backslide on civil rights, civil liberties, women's rights. There's that little button we have. Control guns, not girls. I mean, the idea, we're sitting around, this is where Kamala's so good as well. We're sitting around, more children are killed by a bullet than any other cause of death. The United States of America. What the hell are we doing? What are we doing?
He's going to start screaming.
We got a candidate saying, promise the NRA, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. You got a Supreme Court that is what you might call the most conservative court in American history. This is ridiculous. There's so much we can do still. And I'm
But you're not doing it.
determined to get it done.
We're in poverty with no med
It's about
beds.
freedom.
No health.
And by the way,
I'll
I'll end this. Well, I'm not going to do that. Haley has to come up too. But
He's going downhill.
I remember
That's why he's getting upset.
I made a speech on democracy in Philadelphia at Independence Hall.
Some of this is like an old man just rambling.
And I'm not being critical, just observing. The bulk of the press, what the hell is he talking about that for? Democracy. You did. Democracy's not an issue.
What?
Democracy's not an issue. Except the polling data showed 60% of the people knew I was right, thought I was right.
What is he talking? What?
I'm not asking you a question. You don't have to answer, obviously. But do you think our democracy is under siege?
Yes, by
Based
you.
on this court?
By
Do you
you.
think democracy is under siege based on Project 2025?
Which Trump has said he's not a part
He means
of.
what he says when he says he's going to do away with the civil service, eliminate the Department of Education, make sure.
Department of Ed is a joke.
We've never been here before.
So is Department of
And that's
Health.
the other reason why I
So is the
didn't say
EPA.
hand off to another generation. I've got to finish this job. I've got to finish this
Gotta
job.
finish the job.
Because there's so much at stake.
We've had some discussions over the past few days with your press secretary about the question of health exams, and you said you take a cognitive test every day in this job. Are you open to taking another physical or test before the election? Governor Whitmer of Michigan, for instance, said it wouldn't hurt to take a test.
Wouldn't hurt.
Well, look, two things. One, I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurologist.
He can't get the word out.
In each
He's
case,
gotta
as
stop.
recent as February. And they say I'm in good shape, okay?
His voice is getting raspier
Although I
and
do
quieter.
have a little problem with my left foot because it's not as sensitive because I broke my foot and didn't wear the boot. But I'm good. I'm tested every single day about my neurological capacity, the decisions I make every day.
That's not the
I talk to
same.
my staff, all
It's
of
not the
them
same
talk to my
test.
staff. Sometimes my staff talks a lot.
Call
But
them
the fact
liars.
of the matter is, I don't think you have them telling you that all the major ideas we've undertaken haven't been in part initiated by me. I remember when the staff and I said, I'm going to go to South Korea, we're going to get the chip. What are you doing? I'm going to get Japan and Korea back together again after essentially having hostilities toward one another since the end of World War II. I'm going to move and see that we can expand it. You know, the only thing age does is help you with it. Creates a little bit of wisdom if you pay attention. So the point I'm making is, I think it's important that if the neurologist tells me he thinks I need another exam, and by the way, I've laid every bit of the record out. Hadn't hidden a thing.
I don't believe it.
You ought to ask Trump for his, okay?
He's given it.
I laid it all out. And every single day I'm surrounded by good docs. If they think there's a problem, I promise you, or even if they don't think it's a problem, they think I should have a neurological exam again, I'll do it. But no one's suggesting that to me now. And I'll ask you another question. No matter what I did, no one's going to be satisfied. Did you have 7 docs? Did you have 2? Who'd you have?
We want the truth.
How many times did you?
We're catching you lie.
I am not opposed if my doctors tell me I should have another neurological exam. I'll do it. But that's where I am.
Thank God.
Haley Bull.
Almost
Scripps.
done.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said you're making decisions on a day-to-day basis when it comes to support for Ukraine. Does that mean you have not closed the door on further considering lifting restrictions for U.S.-made weapons inside Russia? And if I may, your convention is coming up where your delegates are pledged to make you the official nominee. If they have second thoughts, are they free to vote their conscience?
Obviously, they're free to do whatever they want, but I get overwhelming support. Overwhelming support. I won, I forget how many votes I won in the primary. Overwhelming. And so tomorrow, if all of a sudden I show up at the convention, everybody says we want somebody else, that's the democratic process. It's not going to happen.
Whisper.
Even if that means they vote for someone else?
Sure. Look. I'll end this with this. I served in the Senate a long time.
Served in the Senate, right? Is that what he said?
I understand the impetus of candidates running for local office and whether they think the top if they can help them or not. In my state of Delaware, which was a very, at least a purple, it was a red state when I started, in terms of we now talk red and blue. I don't recall most of the Democratic presidents winning my state when I was a candidate. The truth of the matter is I understand the self-interest of every candidate. If they think that, running with Biden at the top is going to hurt them, then they're going to run away. I get it. But so far, go and look at the polling data in their states. Look at the in-depth, and by the way, I think you'd all acknowledge, and you're all experts. I'm not being solicitous about the president. You're experts on this stuff. How accurate does anybody think the polls are these days? I can give you a series of polls where you have likely voters.
We don't trust you.
Trump, where I win all the time.
We keep catching you guys lying.
The unlikely voters who vote, he wins sometimes. The bottom line is all the polling data right now, which I think is premature because the campaign really hasn't even started. I mean, it hadn't started in earnest yet. Most of the time, it doesn't start till after September, after Labor Day. So, a lot can happen.
You're getting
But
worse.
I think
You're getting worse.
I believe I'm the best qualified to govern. And I think I'm the best qualified to win. But there are other people who could beat Trump too. But it's awful start from scratch. And, we talk about, money raised. We're not doing bad. We got about $220 million in the bank.
And your donors are falling
We're
off.
doing well.
You're canceling
So,
donor events.
With that, you have any want to follow up on any of that you just asked me?
Yes. You earlier explained confidence in your vice president.
Yes.
If your team came back and showed you data that she would fare better against former President Donald Trump,
good question.
would you reconsider your decision to stay in the race?
Good question.
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win. Me. No one's saying that.
No way.
Paul says that.
Whispers.
Okay. Thanks.
This ends tonight's press conference. Thanks, everybody.
Wow. They're screaming at him. Uh-oh, he's getting confused.
Respectfully, earlier you misspoke in your opening answer. You referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
This concludes tonight's
What?
press conference. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
Listen to him. That doesn't mean anything. They are screaming at him. Ah! Ah! Y'all, what did we just watch? What was that? I don't know about you guys. I'm exhausted. First of all, it was an hour late. Like, look at my hair. My hair's gone all flat. I actually tried to do it for you guys the last couple days because I had the energy. This is, I don't know what to say. This started an hour late. A lot of this was like, my partner said this the other day watching this stuff. It's like he'll start rambling about stuff that nobody cares about. Like the man Jimmy, and he was tall. He was a real tall man. Like he just starts mumbling about, I don't know. With his rambling about stuff that didn't really matter versus him actually just stuttering and misspeaking, my brain is fried. I'm just going to leave it to you guys. What do you think about all this? Tell me. I want to hear every thought. Tell me. Sound off in the comments. If you like this, subscribe. Hit the notifications so you know when I upload. Like the video. It helps. We're just going to keep laughing at all this crap. All right, guys. Until the next gap. I know Monday there's another big interview on ABC, and we're just going to have a bunch of fun stuff. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to cut this up for shorts. All right, guys. Take care. Until the next one. Give me all hugs. Mwah, kisses. Stay safe. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.